The Grand Hall of the Imperial High Council was carved from a single, translucent block of star quartz, its vaulted ceiling reflecting the swirling nebula of the core worlds in a breathtaking display of aristocratic opulence. Hundreds of delegates, multi-eyed dynasts, chitinous warlords, and silken-robed emissaries from 1,000 civilized systems, sat in hushed, reverent silence. At the center of the raised dais stood Emperor Valin, his crown of living light pulsing with the steady, golden rhythm of a sovereign who had ruled 3 galaxies without ever facing a dissenting breath. Beside him stood his only daughter, Princess Elora. She was the jewel of the Orion arm. Her skin possessed the pearlescent iridescence of a deep-sea nebula. Her delicate, crown-like horns shimmered with soft indigo fire, and her aristocratic posture was the very definition of imperial perfection. Today was the rite of union, the ancient, unyielding tradition where the royal bloodline of the Valin dynasty was bound to the rising power of a dominant allied species to secure the stability of the empire for the next millennium. And at the base of the grand staircase, standing alone in the center of the polished obsidian floor, was a human. He didn't wear ceremonial robes threaded with starlight or armor forged from hyperdense alloy. He wore a faded, oil-stained canvas work jacket over a gray cotton t-shirt, heavy steel-toed boots caked in dried red clay from an orbital construction dock, and a battered baseball cap pushed backward on his head. He had short, iron-gray hair, a rugged, weather-beaten face crisscrossed with minor thermal scars, and a look of profound, unadulterated boredom as he chewed slowly on a piece of mint gum. This was Master Chief Engineering Tech Samuel Miller. He hadn't been invited to the Rite of Union to participate. He had been down in Subbasement 9 trying to fix a blown primary coolant valve when a security detail dragged him out of the maintenance shaft, handed him an unwashed uniform, and shoved him into the middle of the throne room because a bureaucratic computer algorithm had randomly matched his genetic registry with the royal bloodline. Emperor Valin raised his scepter, his deep, resonant voice echoing off the court's walls. "The celestial alignments have spoken," Valin proclaimed, his optical arrays locking onto the scruffy human with a mixture of polite diplomatic hesitation and aristocratic disdain. "By ancient decree of the High Council, the genetic key to the Valin throne has selected its partner. Samuel Miller of Earth, step forward and receive the sovereign's bond." A collective murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. Ancient warlords whispered behind their multi-jointed claws, unable to comprehend how the most prized bloodline in the galaxy had been tethered to a common, dirt-stained repair technician from a fringe death world. Samuel stopped chewing his gum. He blinked slowly, looked up at the towering emperor, then looked down at his own grease-stained hands. He sighed, a long, heavy sound of utter exasperation, and rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, Your Highness, or whatever," Samuel said, his raspy, flat voice cutting effortlessly through the opulent silence of the hall. "I'm flattered, really, but my shift on the primary atmospheric scrubber ends in 20 minutes, and if I don't get back down to sublevel 9 to weld that cracked manifold, the entire residential sector is going to lose oxygen. Can we reschedule this for, I don't know, never?" Before the Emperor could respond, Princess Elora snapped. Her pearlescent skin flushed a violent, incandescent crimson of absolute fury. She stepped away from her father's throne, her crystal horns flaring with blinding, jagged pulses of violet light as she glared down at the scruffy human with unmitigated disgust. "Father, I'll never choose a human," Elora shouted, her voice ringing out across the grand hall with sharp, aristocratic venom. "Look at it. It smells of machine oil and ozone. It wears the refuse of a labor camp. It has no noble blood, no psychic resonance, and no understanding of courtly grace. I am the heir to the Valin dynasty. I will not bind my soul to a hairless, soft-tissue ape whose greatest achievement is fixing leaky pipes." The entire council chamber held its collective breath. Insulting a matched partner during the Rite of Union was a direct violation of ancient galactic law, but the sheer, unfiltered aristocratic outrage in the princess's voice left the delegates frozen. Emperor Valin furrowed his brow, his golden crown flickering with mild anxiety. "Elora, control your tone. The algorithmic match is absolute. I don't care about the algorithm, Elora interrupted, stepping to the very edge of the dais and pointing a trembling, crystalline finger straight at Samuel's chest. If the Council forces this primitive upon me, I swear by the twin sons of my ancestors, I will march down to the orbital docks myself, hijack a freighter, and exile myself to the uncharted void before I spend one cycle looking at that pathetic face. Samuel didn't flinch. He didn't look angry, or hurt, or intimidated. He just stood there, hands tucked loosely into the pockets of his oil-stained jacket, watching the raging alien princess throw a royal tantrum the exact same way a tired senior foreman watches an apprentice lose their mind over a stripped screw. When she finally paused to catch her breath, Samuel slowly popped his bubble gum, folded his arms across his chest, and let out another heavy, wheezing sigh. Finished? Samuel asked flatly. Elora glared at him, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing with absolute hatred. You dare speak to me with such casual disrespect? Do you have any idea who I am? Yeah, you're the princess who left her balcony doors open during a high-pressure ion storm yesterday and tripped every circuit breaker in the eastern wing, Samuel said, his tone entirely monotone. Took me 3 hours to rewire the subpanel because you were too busy staring at your pretty purple lights to check the weather advisory. The princess's jaw dropped, her royal composure shattered completely. How do you know about that? Because I'm the guy who has to fix your mess every single time you break something, Samuel muttered, rolling his eyes as he turned half around toward the exit doors. Look, Emperor, with all due respect to your royal bloodline and your glowing little crown, I'm gonna punch out for the day. If the princess doesn't want a human partner, she can write a formal grievance ticket to the maintenance department. Have a nice coronation. With that, Samuel turned his back on the throne, slung a stray wrench he had kept in his pocket over his shoulder, and began casually walking down the obsidian aisle toward the exit. Guard! Elora shrieked, her voice cracking with humiliated fury. Seize him! Execute the insolent beast! 2 massive, 8-foot-tall Imperial honor guards, encased in heavy gold-plated kinetic armor and wielding humming plasma pikes, stepped out from the shadows of the doorway, blocking Samuel's path with an intimidating, synchronized crash of heavy boots. Samuel stopped. He stared at the 2 towering guards for 3 long seconds. Then he looked back up at the princess, his tired brown eyes narrowing with a dangerous, terminal level of workplace annoyance. You really want to do this right now? Samuel asked quietly. Before the guards could level their plasma pikes, Samuel dropped into a low, fluid stance, stepped inside the guard's reach with terrifying, unaugmented human speed, and drove his heavy, steel-toed work boot directly into the knee joint of the left guard's armor seam. Crack spark. The precision kinetic strike bypassed the ceremonial plating instantly, buckling the giant alien's leg and sending him crashing to the floor with a metallic thud. Before the second guard could swing his pike, Samuel caught the shaft with his left hand, twisted his hips with the force of a man who spent his life wrestling industrial turbines, and swept the guard's feet out from under him, slamming him headfirst into the obsidian tiles. Both elite Imperial guards were out cold before they even hit the ground. Dead? Absolute silence filled the grand hall once more. Not a single delegate moved. Emperor Valin stood frozen, his jaw slightly slack as he stared at the 2 unconscious giants lying at the feet of the scruffy human maintenance worker. Samuel casually shook his right hand, adjusted his backward baseball cap, and looked back at the trembling, wide-eyed Princess Elora. Next time, Samuel said, his raspy voice echoing off the court's walls, leave your work order at the front desk. He turned around, walked calmly past the broken doors, and headed back down to Sublevel 9, leaving the proudest princess in the galaxy staring after him in a state of absolute, paralyzed, and deeply conflicted awe.